Dubai, United Arab Emirates. The Burj Al Arab Hotel, September 2018. Mike Tyson sits in a suite overlooking the Persian Gulf when his phone rings. The voice on the other end makes an offer that would change most people's lives forever. $100 million. No fighting required. Just his name, his presence, his legend. What Mike Tyson says next shocks everyone in the room. And the reason behind his answer reveals a truth about wealth, dignity, and what it means to finally understand yourself. Mike Tyson is 52 years old. He's been retired from professional boxing for over a decade. The man who once earned $400 million in his career, the youngest heavyweight champion in history, the fighter who made $30 million in a single night, is sitting in this hotel room as a different person. Not broke, but not wealthy. Not desperate, but aware of what money means and what it costs. The previous years have been humbling. Bankruptcy in 2003, over $23 million in debt. Addiction, loss, public humiliation. The kind of fall that destroys most people completely. But Mike survived. More than survived. He found something in the wreckage of his empire. Something he'd never had when he was worth hundreds of millions. Peace, self-awareness, the beginning of wisdom. He's in Dubai for a speaking engagement. One appearance, one evening, talking to business leaders about resilience and second chances. It pays well enough, covers expenses, gives him purpose, lets him share what he's learned with people who actually want to listen. Mike likes this work. It's honest, it's meaningful, it feels real in a way that nothing felt real during his championship years. The call comes from a representative of a Saudi royal family. Not just any family. One of the wealthiest in the Middle East. The kind of wealth that makes Mike's former fortune look modest. The kind of power that can make anything happen with a single phone call. They want Mike Tyson. They have a proposal. The representative is polite, respectful. He explains that the royal family is hosting a series of private events, exclusive gatherings for the world's elite. Business magnates, politicians, celebrities. They want Mike Tyson as the centerpiece. Not to fight, not to perform. Just to be there. To meet people. To take photos. To lend his name and his legend to their events. They're offering $100 million. A 3-year contract. 30 events per year. 2 to 3 hours per event. Mike would stay in the finest accommodations. Travel first class everywhere. Bring his family. All expenses covered beyond the $100 million. No fighting. No real work. Just show up. Be Mike Tyson. The suite goes quiet. Mike's manager, who's been with him for 5 years now, stops breathing. Mike's wife looks at him carefully, trying to read his face. Everyone in the room understands what this means. Financial security forever. Generational wealth. Everything Mike lost returned 10 times over. No risk, no physical danger, no getting hit in the face. Just show up and smile. But Mike Tyson doesn't answer immediately. He asks questions. What kind of events? Who attends? What would they expect from him? The representative explains. Private parties, exclusive gatherings, some business, some entertainment, high-profile guests who want to meet a legend, photo opportunities, brief conversations, nothing demanding, nothing difficult, just presence. Mike asks another question. Would there be alcohol at these events? The representative hesitates, then confirms. Yes, of course. Open bars. The finest champagne, the rarest whiskeys. For the guests, Mike wouldn't have to drink. He could have anything he wanted. Soda, water, juice. But yes, alcohol would be present. Everywhere. At every event. And that's when Mike Tyson understands. This is where the story truly changes. Mike has been sober for several years now. It's been hard. Harder than any fight he had in the ring. Addiction nearly killed him, multiple times. Cocaine, alcohol, prescription pills. The substances that made the pain go away temporarily, but made everything worse permanently. He lost years to addiction, lost relationships, lost respect, lost himself. Getting sober meant facing everything he'd been running from his entire adult life. The childhood trauma, the loss of Cus D'Amato, his trainer and father figure, the betrayal by people he trusted, the violence he'd inflicted, and the violence that had been inflicted on him. Sobriety meant feeling all of it without numbing it, without escape. But sobriety also gave him something he'd never had before: clarity. The ability to see himself honestly, to understand that the championship belts, the money, the fame, none of it had made him happy. Because he'd never dealt with the pain underneath. He'd just covered it with success and substance and spectacle. And when the success faded, the substance was all that remained, till it almost killed him. Mike looks at his manager, his wife, the people who've supported him through recovery, the people who've watched him rebuild not his career, but his character, his soul. He thinks about the last few years, the small speaking engagements, the podcast he started, where he talks to people honestly about life and pain and growth, the cannabis business he built, something legal, something that helps people with real medical needs, work that feels meaningful, work that keeps him grounded. He thinks about 30 events per year, 90 events over 3 years, 90 nights surrounded by alcohol, by people drinking, by the smell, the presence, the constant temptation, by the kind of excess he spent years learning to avoid, by the environment that nearly destroyed him. And he realizes something that most people wouldn't understand, that $100 million isn't just money. It's a price, a cost. And the cost is his sobriety. Maybe not immediately, maybe not the first event or the 5th or the 10th, but eventually, probably, almost certainly. Mike Tyson tells the representative thank you, but no. The representative doesn't understand. He asks if Mike wants to negotiate. Is it not enough? They can discuss terms, adjust the number, add benefits. Mike says no, it's generous. More than generous. But he can't accept. The representative asks why. Mike takes a breath. Then he says something he's never said publicly before, but he says it now because it's the truth. He says his sobriety is worth more than $100 million. His peace of mind is worth more. His ability to wake up clear-headed and face the day honestly is worth more. He spent decades destroying himself. He spent years rebuilding. And he's not going to trade that for any amount of money. Not 50 million. Not 100 million. Not a billion. Because he's already learned what happens when you trade your soul for wealth. He's lived that story. And it almost killed him. The representative is silent. Then he thanks Mike for his time and ends the call. Mike's manager sits down heavily. He understands. He doesn't like it from a business perspective. $100 million is $100 million, but he understands. Mike's wife comes, her hand on his shoulder. She's proud. She knows what this decision cost him. Not the money, but the admission. The vulnerability of saying out loud that he's not strong enough to be around that environment. That he's not confident enough in his sobriety to test it 90 times. That he's afraid. And admitting fear, for Mike Tyson, has always been harder than any fight. Later that evening, Mike does his speaking engagement. He talks about failure and recovery, about hitting bottom and climbing back, about learning that strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up, about admitting weakness, about asking for help, about choosing the harder right over the easier wrong. And when someone in the audience asks what success means to him now, Mike pauses. Then he says success means being able to look at yourself in the mirror and respect what you see. Success means not selling your peace for profit. Success means understanding that some things, once lost, can never be bought back. And the most valuable thing you own is your integrity, your sobriety, your soul. That night, alone in his hotel room, Mike reflects on the offer. $100 million. More money than he made in most of his biggest fights combined. Money that would have set up his children and grandchildren forever. Money that would have erased every financial worry. And he'd said no. Part of him wonders if he made a mistake, if he was foolish, if he let pride or fear make his decision instead of wisdom. But then he thinks about the alternative. About standing in those events with a drink in someone's hand nearby. About the smell of alcohol. About the old temptations creeping back. About the slow erosion of resolve. About waking up 6 months into the contract and realizing he'd relapsed. About losing everything he'd worked so hard to build. About disappointing the people who believed in him. About disappointing himself. And he knows he made the right choice. The only choice. because he's learned something that took him 50 years to understand. You can lose everything and get it back. Money, fame, reputation. But if you lose yourself, if you trade your soul, you might never find it again. And Mike Tyson spent too many years lost to risk that journey again. The story doesn't make the news immediately. Mike doesn't talk about it publicly. But eventually, someone asks him in an interview about financial opportunities and whether he has regrets about his bankruptcy and lost fortune. And Mike tells them about the Saudi offer, about the $100 million, about his decision. The interviewer is shocked, asks if he's serious. Mike smiles, says he's never been more serious about anything in his life, says that young Mike Tyson would have taken the money without thinking, would have convinced himself he could handle it, would have believed the money was worth any risk. But older Mike Tyson, sober Mike Tyson, knows better. Knows that the most expensive thing you can buy is a relapse, and no amount of money is worth that price. The interview goes viral. People can't believe it. Mike Tyson, the man who squandered $400 million, turned down $100 million more. Some people call him foolish, say he's making excuses, say he's overthinking it. But others, people in recovery, people who've fought addiction, people who understand the daily battle of sobriety, they understand completely. They see a man who finally learned what matters, who finally put his health and his soul above wealth, who finally chose himself over money. Mike Tyson is not perfect. He'll tell you that himself. He's made terrible mistakes, hurt people, destroyed relationships, wasted opportunities. But he's also done something that most people never do. He's changed, really changed. Not just his behavior, but his understanding, his values, his definition of success. And that change is worth more than any contract, more than any amount of money, because it gave him something money never could. Peace, self-respect, the ability to sleep at night, the ability to look his children in the eye, the ability to be proud of who he is, not what he has. That decision in Dubai, that phone call where Mike Tyson said no to $100 million, became one of the most important moments of his life. Not because of what he gained, but because of what he protected. His sobriety, his dignity, his hard-won wisdom. And in protecting those things, he proved something to himself, that he's finally learned the lesson he needed most, that true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts. It's measured in peace of mind, in self-respect, in the ability to make the right choice even when it costs everything, especially when it costs everything. Years from now, when people tell the story of Mike Tyson, they'll talk about his youngest heavyweight championship, his devastating knockouts, his fall from grace. But those who really understand will also tell the story of the $100 million he refused. Because that refusal says more about who Mike Tyson became than any victory in the ring ever could. It says he finally learned what matters, what's worth fighting for, and what's worth protecting at any cost. Your soul, your sobriety, yourself. Those things, once you understand their value, become priceless. And Mike Tyson finally understands.